It's time to talk to Mary Kay Cabot of Cleveland.com on the Make It Right, Call Kyle Right hotline. Mary Kay, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing well. So Grant Udinkski is interviewing with the Cleveland Browns today. Mary Kay, how realistic is it that he can possibly be the Cleveland Browns' next head coach?
Well, I think he's in the mix. They really haven't interviewed him yet, so I don't think we can name him as any kind of a favorite at this point. But he's certainly in the mix, and he's a very, very intriguing candidate. There are so many things to like about him. But I'll tell you what, there are a lot of guys on this list that I think would make excellent young, rising head coaches.
Mary Kay, we were talking to Eric Edholm of NFL.com earlier, and he kind of this wasn't him reporting this, but this was him just kind of talking more flatly about Jim Schwartz, and he sort of said, you know, maybe this is them feeling like Jim Schwartz is like, hey, if these other guys don't work out, he's kind of our safety net. He's our fallback plan, if you will. Do you view Jim Schwartz's candidacy as in that same way where it's like if these other guys maybe aren't it or we don't think they're ready, he's the guy for us?
Well, that could be it, but I also think that they feel that Jim is a very strong candidate in his own right despite everything else that's going on. So I don't think it's just, if we can't get one of these guys, we'll hire Jim. I don't think it's like that at all. I think they really see the merits of Jim Schwartz in and of himself and know what he can bring to the table, both from a defensive standpoint and a leadership standpoint.
Can I ask real quick as a follow-up to that, since we're talking about Schwartz, if they hire somebody that isn't Jim Schwartz, if it's not him getting promoted to head coach, how likely do you feel it is, based on what you know right now, that one of these other coaches would potentially be willing to keep him on staff? I know they've been pitching that to other coaches, but how likely do you think that would be?
Well, I think it would probably be very likely, especially if you hire one of these young, bright offensive minds and they need a really great, amazing defensive coordinator. That way you're keeping the defensive side of the ball really super strong, and you're keeping all those players over there on that side of the ball really happy, and that just hums along while you rebuild your offense. So I definitely think they would be open to that.
Mary Kay, my favorite on the list is Nate Shieldhouse. I really like him, 35 years old, Sean McVay coaching tree. He draws up a lot of plays. I think he's a brilliant mind. Tell our audience a little bit about Nate, and then I'm pretty sure you have a list by now. Who on your list is your personal favorite to be the Browns' next head coach?
Well, I don't really have a personal favorite yet. I'm still working my way through the list, but I am very intrigued by some of these young guys like Nate and like Dan Pitcher and like Grant, who's interviewing with them today. So I think any number of these guys would do an amazing job, and I like different things about them. With Dan Pitcher, I like the fact that he comes from the scouting background and worked with Andrew Berry in Indianapolis. With Nate, he's been a quarterback in his career, a very successful quarterback in his career, and he really understands that position, and that's vitally important. And then with Grant, you're just talking about the fact that he's got tremendous leadership and presence, and he's brilliant. So a lot of these guys are very, very intriguing.
Talking about Mary Kay Cabot on the Make It Right, Call Kyle Right hotline here. Mary Kay, Mike McDaniel's obviously another one that interviewed this past week. It feels like, at least externally and among, the sports world or the NFL world, there's mixed opinions on him. There's certainly not the case when it comes to like his X's and O's. I think he's lauded for his X's and O's, but the questions maybe come in where it's like, can he lead a locker room? There were some things that obviously came out of Miami. Do you get the sense that is similar to how he's perceived in NFL circles, and how do the Browns kind of view, especially that leadership point on Mike McDaniel?
Well, they really like his bright mind. They know all about that because, of course, he was here in 2014 under Kyle Shanahan. They've seen what he's done in Miami. So they like all of those things about him. I haven't even heard yet that he's getting a second interview, and I've been working very, very hard on the whole second interview piece right now. I don't think he's getting that, and or at least not at the moment. And I believe he's interviewing for the Raiders job. And so we'll have to see how this starts to go. But right now, I don't know if he will be back here for a second interview or not. Again, they are just getting into that at the beginning of this week. But I think they appreciate everything that Mike McDaniel's Mike McDaniel brings to the table, and I think he's viewed very favorably in the organization.
Mary Kay, it seems like that Kevin Stefanski possibly could be coming off the board very soon as Atlanta's next head coach. It seems like, just from reading the tea leaves, that they are trying to not let him leave the building. How long before you think this search is over for the Browns? And I ask that because, you're going to be coming in here with a new head coach. He has to put together a staff. Combine is right around the corner. And you want to have some type of structure in place as early as possible to start putting together a plan before you get to the combine. So exactly how much longer do you think this is going to play itself out?
In a perfect world, I think they'd love to name their guy by next week. The dominoes are starting to fall. Staffs are being assembled. And, I think if they had their druthers, of course, they wouldn't mind doing that. But if you want to have a head coach that just so happens to be moving forward in the playoffs, then you're just going to have to be a little bit more patient. And I don't think that they should hurry and hire someone just because some of their candidates are headed to championship games. So you have to be really, really careful about doing that. You want to make sure that you're getting the right guy. And if you have to wait a few weeks, then you have to be willing to do that.
Real quick, Mary Kay, as a follow-up on the McDaniel thing, that interview they held with him this past week, was that also virtual or was that one in person?
I believe that one was in person, but
okay.
I cannot honestly say that for sure. But he was able to interview in person. So if you're going to be able to do that, I think you would want to do that. I don't know for 100% certain that he was here in person, but I would guess that that's how they wanted to do that one.
All right. And then I was going to also ask, sort of off of the thought process of how they play this thing with teams in the playoffs and all those different things. Is there anybody that they haven't requested yet to get an interview that maybe could emerge this upcoming week, or is the list that we've seen to this point pretty much the list at this point?
Well, you never know. Sometimes someone can swoop in at the last minute and you get an interview with someone that, for whatever reason, wasn't on your original list. I had heard that they were going to request an interview with Chris Shula. Now I don't know if that's going to happen because it's starting to get kind of late for that. He's all over the interview circuit, and they haven't done that yet. So now I don't know if that's actually going to happen. We'll have to see how that goes. But yeah, I suppose there could be another name that surfaces. Right now I don't know who that would be.
Mary Kay, do you think the Browns care so much about whether or not they hire like one of these bright up-and-coming offensive minds, or if they or do they care so much if it's maybe the defensive side of the ball? Because we hear so much about wanting to pair an offensive coordinator into a head coach with a quarterback when you eventually find that guy, and if you do the opposite, you're sort of changing out coordinators. Baker Mayfield dealt with that obviously early in his tenure for different reasons because there was, a lot of coaching changes. But do you think that they prefer to go that route where it's maybe an up-and-coming offensive mind who then they can pair with a quarterback, or are they maybe does that matter to them, I guess?
No, that doesn't matter to them. If the head coach is a defensive-minded head coach and you have a great play caller coordinator, then they're fine with that setup as well. And we see that succeeding elsewhere in the NFL right now with the Patriots and with the Seahawks and places like that. So I don't think that's something that is foremost in their mind at all. I just think that they feel like they really love what they have in Jim Schwartz on the defensive side of the ball, and they have to make sure somehow that he remains with the football team.
Hypothetically, Mary Kay, if Jim Schwartz was to end up being the next head coach of the Cleveland Browns, do you think it's likely that Tommy Rees stays here as the offensive coordinator?
Well, I've been writing, and I don't know if this is coming through or not loud and clear enough, but I have been writing that I think there is a world in which Tommy could end up going with Kevin. I have written that in a few of my stories. I think I have to maybe further bolster the fact that I have been saying that because I'm not sure it's getting out there enough. But I
saw you wrote it, Mary Kay. I read it.
Thank you. Sometimes if things don't end up in the headline, a lot of times with today's consumption of media, if it's not in the headline, it didn't happen. So sometimes I forget. Sometimes I need to tweet the other aspects of a story that didn't make it into the headline. But anyway, so yes, I do think there's a world in which Tommy could be acquired by Kevin. Not 100% sure about that yet. Of course, it depends on what's going to happen in Cleveland.
Mary Kay, obviously, when it comes to the quarterback situation, a lot of that's going to depend on who they choose as a head coach. But before we get that figured out, I'm going to ask you to speculate, I guess, a little bit. Like, how do you think this room looks next year? Is it as currently constructed? Is there a veteran they add? Would they look in the draft again to maybe add somebody? Like, what do you ultimately think the room consists of, whether it's old faces, new faces, by the time, training camp opens up come August?
You know what? It depends. It depends on who this new head coach is and what he sees in this quarterback room right now. And if he likes what he sees, then they will move forward, and Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders will compete for that starting job if the new coach likes what the room consists of right now. If the new coach doesn't appreciate fully what the room consists of right now, then he will be given the opportunity to either draft a quarterback, trade for a quarterback, or sign a quarterback in free agency. So I think it's to be determined.
So, Mary Kay, in our last interview, we was told that with the John Harbaugh situation in New York, some of the language was still being worked out. And a lot of it was the power structure, who he's going to report to. And then we asked the question along the lines of, what's some of the reservations about the Browns job? And it was highlighted ownership. In your opinion, whomever gets this job as the next Browns head coach, are they reporting to Andrew Berry or to Jimmy Haslam?
I'm not sure exactly how they would do that. Maybe they would report to Andrew, but it could be the way that it's been where both report to Jimmy. So we'll have to see how they work that out. And some of that sometimes depends on who you hire as well. So I would guess that both would report to Jimmy, but not 100% sure about that.
All right, Mary Kay, well, we appreciate you for your time on this morning. We will be looking on social media for your articles to bump that article that you have mentioned, Tommy Rees possibly going with Kevin Stefanski, so we can retweet that and get that out there. But we appreciate you for your time today.
Thanks, Mary Kay.
Okay, take care, guys. Thanks a lot.
All right, take care.